The government. The government is expected to take all the possible steps to reduce the inflation, to control even the deflation, to create the employment opportunities and work for the price stability also. Obviously, for achieving all these objectives, government uses some tools, and one of the tools used by government is called as the fiscal policy. What exactly the fiscal policy is, how exactly it works, everything we are going to learn in this chapter called as fiscal policy in economics. So let's see what exactly fiscal policy is. The meaning. Fiscal policy is for the control of inflation and deflation in the economy, for proper income distribution, for economic growth and development, that means increase of income and its proper distribution also. So these are the main things for which the steps are taken called as fiscal policy of government. What does it include? It includes government spending, for example the expenditure made by government for infrastructure facilities or maybe subsidies given. It also includes a proper taxation policy, that is combination of direct and indirect taxes. It also includes the government borrowings, which we call it as a deficit budget. So these are the things, these are the sub-tools which are used in the main tool called as fiscal policy. Now next comes, what are the objectives of having a good fiscal policy? The first objective is achievement of full employment, not only of HR but also of all the resources available in our economy. Price stability, the economy, the country having stable prices is assumed to be a stable country and a good market, so that becomes second objective. Acceleration, that is increase of economic growth as well as economic development. Equal distribution of income and wealth. It should not happen that the major part of income goes in the hands of 2 or 4 businesses only. So that's why equal distribution is also the objective of fiscal policy, like direct taxes, which are charged at the higher rate on the higher income generation groups and used for the lower income generating groups. So these are 4 objectives of fiscal policy. Now the next question comes, what are the tools? How does it actually happens in any economy? In any economy, there are 2 things which works towards a proper fiscal policy. One cannot be called as, or it is not actually called as fiscal policy, is called as automatic stabilizer. Same steps of fiscal policy but not taken by government. These steps are actually taken by the market forces itself. So that is not the purposeful step taken by government, while the second, fiscal policy, is the actual step taken by government towards achieving the objective. So let's see what exactly automatic stabilizer is, how exactly it works. Automatic stabilizer is a non-discretionary or non-compulsory or non-purposeful steps, no planned steps by government. Government do not take any step, do not make any intervention. It happens automatically. It takes control or adjust with each other automatically. It's an inbuilt fiscal policy of the economy. What does it mean exactly? Let's take an example of demand and supply equilibrium. As we know, where the demand and supply curve intersect with each other, that's the equilibrium price. Sometimes suddenly the demand for a particular product goes up and we say that demand is higher, supply is constant, so the prices will go up. I agree. In a short period, the prices may go up, but in a medium time or a longer period, if you think, as the prices are going up, the producer are motivated to earn more profit and they supply more. So with the increase in demand, automatically increasing supply takes place and prices again comes down to the stabilized or equilibrium price. This is called as automatic stabilizer, no government intervention at all. It's an inbuilt fiscal policy. The taxes also gets automatically adjusted if the freedom is given by government. The best example is petrol prices. Earlier the petrol prices were controlled by government, now it is in the open market. Every day the prices goes ups and down. So that is what is automatic stabilizer. So in case of automatic stabilizer, how exactly it works when there is deflation? Let's say demand reduces. As we know what is deflation, there is no demand for the product in the market. So demand came down. Obviously income comes down of the producer also, and he will reduce the salary of his or wages of his employees also. So overall income line comes down in the economy. As the incomes are lower, automatically the direct taxes comes down. So taxes are reduced. Remaining disposable income is used for the consumption. For example, earlier maybe 30% tax bracket was there, 70% was to be used called as disposable income. Now people came down to 20% tax bracket, so 80% is a disposable income. So the disposable income is available. Gradually the demand will increase. As I am paying only 20% tax, or from 30% I came down to 10% tax rate, the available proportionate income is more, which will come in the market as a part of demand, and gradually the demand will increase. That is what is the assumption of automatic stabilizer. Does it really work? Not exactly the extent of 100%, because even though the tax rate is reducing, my income has also came down. So the demand will increase in a very long period. That's why the government intervention is needed. But of course, even the government is working, still some automatic stabilizers must be working in the market. For example, inflation, the opposite things takes place. Demand increases, the income of producers increases, of course, so he goes in a higher tax bracket. Lower the remaining disposable income is used for the consumption, then gradually the demand will come down, and in a very long period again it will be stabilized. So I repeat, this is possible, this works in every country, in every economy, but it must be supported by government intervention also, which we call it as a fiscal policy, which is our subject of matter today. Now, automatic stabilizer works as a supporting tool to the fiscal policy, as we discussed. Automatic stabilizer plus fiscal policy, how does it work? GDP, as we know, GDP is a basic benchmark to make the analysis, is C plus I plus G plus NX. C is consumption by consumers, I is investments made in the market, G is a government expenditure, and NX is the net exports minus imports. In short, it is the perfect combination of automatic stabilizer as well as government intervention also. Then only the GDP will take the shape. So of course, automatic stabilizer plays an important role, but cannot work a lot without the government distribution or government intervention. Now, coming back to the fiscal policy, as I said, it is not automatic stabilizer. These are the specific steps taken by government. Then what are the tools in the hands of government? So there are 4 tools. First, government expenditure, that is the expenditure made by government, that we will see in detail. Taxes, the combination of direct and indirect tax. Public debt, that is the loans taken by the government for public expenditure. And the budget, which is actually the statement of income and expense of government. So let's analyze these 4 tools in detail. Tool number 1 is government expenditure. Let's see how does it work. It is the expenditure by government for 3 headings. On which headings actually the government makes an expenditure? 3 heads are current expenditure for day-to-day activities like salary of government employees, maybe the fuel to be purchased for government vehicles, something like that, the current expenditure. Capital expenditure by government for infrastructural, that is long-term activities, and transfer payment, that is internal transfer of funds from government banks to the railway department, from railway department to electricity bill paid, something like this. These are internal transfer. So generally the government expenditure is made on 3 headings: current, capital and transfer payment. Of course, capital expenditure plays an important role in the fiscal policy. Government expenditure, the use of the in case of deflation. How does exactly the government play an important role in the time of deflation? When there is deflation, what do we mean by deflation? There is no money in the hands of people, so the demand is not created, prices are coming down, overall demand in the market is down, so motivation is not there. Then what government does? The government increases the expenditure. Maybe new roads are constructed, new work is started, so that people will get the money in the form of wages, salary. They will get the amount, they will increase the demand. The works undertaken like road constructions, as we discussed, additional facilities are made available for private sectors. Maybe some subsidies are given, then the private sectors are welcome for starting new manufacturing projects. Maybe tax holidays are given for 5 years. So whatever happens, the demand and supply should be proper. That is what government tries to do. So additional facilities. Public spending, Then the use of, in case of deflation, there is one concept called as pump priming. Public spending, when the private spending is insufficient, when the private companies are not ready to start the product, because ultimately they will see the profit. When there is no demand, they will not start for new products. Then the government will enter in this project, and then government will start manufacturing the products, which may be gradually given to private sector, like the Maruti Udyog Limited, started by government, now it is in the hands of private sector. So that is called as pump prime. Then compensatory spending, spending by the government to support the private sector. Maybe private sector wish to start some project, then government will invest in that up to 49%, up to 20%. So additional funding made available by government, compensatory spending. So this was all about the government expenditure, first tool towards the fiscal policy. Second tool is taxes. Taxes is an important tool in the hands of government which directly controls the revenue and money supply in the market. Let's see how. It is used to stabilize the economy. It decides the volume of disposable income in the economy. If the tax rate is 30%, only 70% amount is usable. If tax rate is reduced by government 20%, 80% amount can be used. That is called as disposable income. More is the disposable income, more will be the demand in the market. In the time of deflation, tax holidays are offered to businesses. When there is deflation, no demand, get the tax benefits, start the projects, make the supply at a lower prices, then the demand will go up. Lower taxes are charged to public. The disposable income is increased so that you can spend more amount in the market. Higher disposable income is kept, as we discussed. It increases the demand and ultimately the economy comes out of deflation. Of course, it will take a little bit more time, but it is an important tool in the hands of government. Reduce the taxes, give some facilities, give some discounts, and then you will get the deflation properly cured. Now what happens in case of inflation? The demand is high, the prices are going up, supply is not to that extent. Then additional taxes are levied on the businesses, so that as the additional taxes are there, they will not have disposable income, even they will reduce the salaries, and again overall disposable income in the economy will come down. Higher taxes are charged to general public, again disposable income is reduced and it reduces the demand and ultimately the prices in the market. So government uses tax as a direct tool to increase the supply of money or reduce the supply of money in the market. So that is the tool number 2, taxes. Coming towards the third tool used by the government is public debt. That means the loans taken by government for the benefit of public. It is the kind of loan taken by the government. It can be of two types, internal debt and external debt. Internal debt is raised by government from general public. Have you given any loan to government? Obviously everyone will say, no, I have not given loan to government. It is not actually in the form of loans given. It is in the form of government bonds. If a person invests the amount in government bonds, actually is giving loan to the government. So that is called as internal debt by the government. Example is issue of treasury bills to public for a long term. So government offers a good interest rate. So instead of keeping in FD, public invests the amount in public government deposits or government bonds. So that's a kind of loan taken from public by the government. Small saving deposits like NSC is one of the most famous tool for investment for at least for 3 or 4 generations. They have invested a huge amount in NSC, that is National Saving Certificates. The amount gave to the government as a short-term loan or a medium-term loan. Use of internal debt. In case of inflation, government issues the bonds and curtails money and demand. When there is inflation, huge demand is there, then the government bonds will offer you good return. You will invest the amount with government, then disposable income is again lesser in your hand. So demand will come down, inflation is controlled. In the time of deflation, government will repurchase the bond. That is, the amount will be repaid to you at premium. You will have a huge amount in your hand for expenditure. Automatically demand will be increased and deflation will come down. So that is the use of internal debt. Now coming to the external debt. That is the third tool, public debt. Second type, external debt. It is in the form of loans taken from the other countries or institutions like IMF, International Monetary Funds, or maybe international banks. So it's a direct loan taken and which is used for the public expenditure. So we have gone through third tool, that is public expenditure through the public debt. Next comes fourth tool, budget. An interesting subject for every commerce student is a budget. Every year the union budget is declared in February, thereafter the state budget, railway budgets are followed. So let's see what exactly the budget is. Budget is the statement of expected revenues and expenditures of government. How much amount government wish to earn or plan to earn or expect to earn and how much is expected expenditure against it. It can be a balanced budget, surplus budget or a deficit budget. Balanced budget means the expected revenue is equal to expected expenditure. Surplus budget, we are expecting more revenues than the expenditure by government. Deficit is opposite. Expenditures are expected to be more than the expected inflow. So, balanced budget, here injections. Injections means the tools taken by or used by government, steps taken by government for the public benefit are equal to the revenue. That we generally call it as public expenditure or government expenditure is equal to the revenue. So, impact on economy is not much impact. Surplus budget. Injections, that is the tools to be taken, government is taking the steps are lesser than the surplus. Let's say surplus is 100 CR, expenditure is hardly 80 CR, 20 CR is surplus in the hands of government. Apparently seems good, but from the point of view of general public, we should say it's not that much useful because government is not spending for public. So impact on economy not so good for the development of the economy because government is not ready to expend the amount. So that's a surplus budget. Deficit budget, of course, government is expending more on injections, that is the tools for public. So it gives the boost for development. For example, 100 CR is the expected revenue. Government is ready to pay 150 CR for public benefit. It means 50 CR extra is taken as a loan. Even though it's a loan, still it is good for the economy because new tools, new plans will come in the picture for the economy. So that's why deficit budget is generally assumed to be negative or not so good, but actually the opposite is the case. So that was the fourth tool, that is budget. So till now we have seen what exactly fiscal policy is, what are its objective, how automatic stabilizer works, how government intervention is done called as fiscal policy. We have seen the four tools also, what exactly government does in it. Now going towards fiscal policy types. Let's see what are the types of fiscal policy. There are basically two types, expansionary policy and contractionary policy. What exactly this is? Let's see. First, expansionary policy. It is used when the business cycle are not positive and demand is not growing. The situation is that the demand is not there. That means we call it as a deflationary situation. The business houses are not motivated to work or grow more and the demand is also curtailed. In that case, the expansionary policy is used. There is contractionary gap. What is this gap? The gap between the potential production and actual production. When the country, our economy is able to produce, let's say 1 lakh ton goods, but we are producing hardly 80,000 ton goods. So 20,000 tons is a gap called as contractionary gap. In this case, the government need to take the steps. That means we have a capacity, but we are not using the capacity, which is generally a common feature of any developing country. That's why expansionary policy takes place when there is a gap between capacity and actual consumption. In contractionary gap, it is due to lesser demand as compared to expected demand. Why does it happen? When my company is having capacity to manufacture, let's say 10,000 tons per annum and I am manufacturing only 8,000, why I am not motivated? Because there is no demand in the market. So the role or the main important point government should do is, it should take step to increase the demand. That is what we are going to learn in expansionary policy. So demand is lesser than the expected demand. Here the government increases the government expenditure called as G and reduces the overall taxes. Government makes more expenditure, as we have seen, like starting of a new project, dam construction, road construction, or maybe some new companies are started with the private sector undertaking. So the new employment opportunities are created by government expenditure. Taxes are reduced, so disposable income is more. So more amount is made available to public called as expansionary policy. It aims at increasing the overall demand in the market. Let's see how exactly the demand is increased. As we can see on the x-axis we get GDP and y-axis price level. This was our demand and supply curves D1 and S1. So here comes the price and this is the overall Y. Y means yield. This was the yield which is called as GDP in the economy. So this is the demand, this is the supply. Now government takes some steps so that demand will increase. How demand will increase? Let's say employment opportunities are given. So obviously the demand will go up, as well as the supply is also increased by giving new facilities to the manufacturers, tax benefits, tax holidays. So on one hand, the consumers are motivated to consume more by reducing the taxes, by giving more employment opportunities. At the other hand, the suppliers are motivated to produce more by giving them some facilities like tax haven, tax benefits, etc. or subsidies. So ultimately, the price little bit goes up and the revenue yield, that is GDP in the economy, increases. This is called as expansionary policy. I repeat, the government takes steps to increase the demand as well as supply. By the way, the prices goes up and overall GDP also increases. Expansionary policy. It is generally taken in the time of deflation when there is no demand. Of course, the success of this policy also depends on the proper interest rate policy of government. For example, when the government is offering lesser taxes, the disposable income is good. But if the bank increases their rates of loan, then no one will go to purchase the goods, generally capital goods like cars and not capital but the long-term goods like cars and machineries, etc. That's why a proper interest rate should also be implemented so that the fiscal policy, expansionary policy will get the success. So we have seen expansionary policy at the time of deflation used by government. Now going towards the second type of policy used by government is contractionary policy. Obviously the opposite effect of the expansionary policy. It is used when the demand for the product is abnormally more than the possible production. The production possibility of our country is, let's say, 100 tons and the demand is abnormally high, let's say 150 or 200 tons, which is not practically possible. It will lead to heavy increase in prices. General public will not be able to purchase the goods. So in that case, in the time of high inflation, contractionary policy is used. Here the government decreases public expenditure, the money is reduced, the employment opportunities comes down. Then the government increases the tax rate and imposes new taxes, surcharge, etc. So the new taxes are introduced or tax rates are increased or heavy surcharge or cess are charged so that disposable income comes down. It aims at decreasing the overall demand in the market. As the money is not available, demand will obviously comes down. So that was about the contractionary policy. It should be contractionary here. How it works? This was original demand and supply. Now government has reduced government expenditure, higher taxes are there, so the consumer is demotivated to purchase more. So demand curve came down. As well as new taxes are imposed on government, new prices are now coming up, so that is the prices are increasing. Maybe the prices of petrol is going up, diesel is going up, transportation cost going up. Some negative factors are happening, so the supplier is demotivated to produce more, so the prices comes down. Of course GDP also comes down, but that is something which is required to be done because the prices were going abnormally high, called as contractionary policy. So in this way, why it is to be done? So the prices can be cured and ultimately the aim of contractionary policy is to control the prices. In short, what we can conclude is by contractionary or by inflationary or increasing prices policy, ultimately government tries to keep the prices in control, and that is what is called as fiscal policy altogether. So moving forward towards the long-term effects. As we have seen, these kind of steps taken by government are giving a short-term impact. The prices goes up, then the tool is introduced, prices comes down. Prices goes down, then the tool is introduced to get the prices up. So obviously these are used for short-term. But is it possible to have a long-term effect? That is something which is highly expected, and that is why when a government is actually in the government or ruling party is in government for 5 years, they cannot have a long-term impact. They need some more time to give the impact. So the policy introduced today may give you the effect after 15-20 years. So that is what is called as long-term effects of a fiscal policy. So it aims at the long-term stability and economic growth and development. Within 5 years everything was good. After 5 years it may go down, will not work. It should be long-term. It includes a stable tax policy. In many of the countries, the taxes are so stable that for so many years they are constant. So it gives a proper strength, it gives a proper rating to that country. So stable tax policy must be there. It includes government investment in infrastructural facilities. When we say that government started some road construction, maybe it is for a short period. But when we say it's an infrastructure facility for a long period, then it will give you the long-term impact. It also includes government policies to motivate the business houses to invest for a long term. every state, every country tries to invite the external investors to come to our state or country and invest for a long period. When a particular investment, particular company is in that state or a country for let's say 20-30 years, then only it will give a proper impact. So government policies to motivate business houses to invest for a long period. So this is called as the tools taken for a long-term impact in the fiscal policy. Now for ideal fiscal policy, I wish tomorrow you will be the finance minister or prime minister. Then the first question you will ask, what are the features of having the ideal fiscal policy? The features are, direct tax system must be perfectly progressive in nature. Direct tax is also called as Robin Hood tax. That means collect the amount from those who are in the higher income group and distribute it to those who are in the lower income group. Give them an opportunity to come up. When they will enter in the higher tax bracket, they will contribute the taxes and again it will be used for the lower income group. So it must be, which is called as progressive in nature. So it must be perfectly planned, which is ideally really very good in our country. Indirect system should be in differential indirect taxes, that is higher taxes on luxuries and lower or even no taxes on the necessities. So indirect tax is a very dangerous tax. When we think about indirect taxes, it directly leads to the inflation because it is same rate applicable to everyone in the economy. So it should be differential rates as per the products. Public expenditure system must be perfectly planned, aiming towards a poverty removal. So public expenditure should work for those who are below poverty line, so that gradually the income, demand and obviously the production will increase in the economy. It should be focused on promoting the infrastructural facilities in our country. Social securities like pensions etc. should be made available to those who are in the need of it, so that they will have a comfortable life. So subsidies on necessities and mass consumption should be able to be given. When government is stable, then only such kind of facilities can be given by government. Enhancement of employment, not only of human resource employment of course, but of other resources also. So these are all the things which an ideal fiscal policy actually aims at. Is there any ideal fiscal policy in all over the world? Maybe or may not be. It purely depends on the situation in that country. So obviously there comes all these advantages comes with some limitations also. So moving towards the limitations of the fiscal policy. First, a lag, time span. There is a lag of action. Why there is a time span of action? First is recognition lag. It takes long time for government to recognize the need for something. When any act is passed, but for so many years the discussions are going on. So to recognize the need of applying higher taxes, maybe in our country the agriculture sector is not taxed at all. So there is a demand for a long period that higher income agriculture, that is farmers, should be charged some taxes, but still it is not accepted by government. So recognition time span could be a long time span. Then decision lag. Once it is recognized and accepted by government, it takes long time for taking the decision and starting the actual implementation. Implementation lag. Once it is implemented, still there is some R&D, there are some things which are to be actually worked out. So like GST, it was under discussion for 3 to 4 years. Finally it was introduced in our country. So implementation lag is also there. And finally the impact lag. It takes a lot of time to actually know exact impact on it. Whenever the new taxes, new act comes in, obviously there is a resistance to that act. It may take 10 or 15 years to get the actual impact. So these lags are actually to be concerned or actually to be taken care by government while implementing the policy. But these lags of course makes it very difficult to implement the new policy. Bad timing. Sometimes a good tax or good steps taken by government at a bad time will affect our country also. So the timing of any step taken in fiscal policy should also be properly taken care of, which actually becomes a limitation. Practical difficulties like planning is easy but implementation is worst in many of the cases. The acts are there but the implementation is not done. Taxes are charged but the actual tax bracket or collection is not done. So implementation problems are also there. There are some unavoidable spending. When we say that government should reduce the expenditure for public, but government cannot reduce the expenditure on areas like defense, law and order or necessities. In that case, even if you suggest to government cannot take that step to reduce the government expenditure. That becomes a limitation. huge projects. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to change the decision about huge project. Once the project has been started, now government cannot take back the amount from it. So huge projects may not help you or may not allow you to take the fiscal policy steps. Forecasting is very difficult. It's very difficult because a country is not an isolated economy. It depends on the other countries also. The impact comes to our country. So when the inflation or deflation will exactly take place, it becomes very difficult to forecast and the steps cannot be taken with foolproof guarantee. Conflicts. A decision taken for a specific or the steps taken for a specific decision may affect the other decisions also. For example, if government decided to make the privatization, it will affect the social justice also. So conflict between these two factors may also become the limitation of a good fiscal policy. Then disincentives, that is the tools like more taxes. It is generally given and easily given that the government should charge more taxes from public or more taxes from the production houses. But practically, is it so easy? When higher taxes are charged on the investors or the manufacturers or suppliers, maybe they will demotivated to produce more. It will lead to unemployment and deflation also. So just saying that reduce the taxes or increase the taxes is easy, but practically it's very difficult. It will demotivate the manufacturers. Demand and supply matching. The deficit financing may lead to more demand. Deficit financing is there, facilities are given, taxes are reduced, so the demand is increasing. But it is assumed that supply will also increase on the other hand. If it doesn't happen, then the economy may collapse. Then again inflationary situation will come. Burden on government. It is said that the deficit budget is good for economy. Of course it is. But when it is deficit budget, obviously government has to take the load of new loans, and such kind of new loans will affect the economy in a long period, because if it is not paid, then huge interest or penalties will have to be paid. So that's a burden on government. Government borrowings, when the government will compete with businesses, when the government says that we are also entering in the area and we are also manufacturing, then there will be a competition not only in the market but also for taking the loans. And when government is taking the loan, the demand for loan is increasing. Overall interest rates in the economy will also go up. Again it will demotivate the other manufacturers to produce more. Again employment will come down and it will lead towards deflation. So such kind of practical problems becomes huge limitations or important limitations in implementation of a fiscal policy. That's why it's very easy to say that government do not take these kind of steps which are very easy, but we must check the limitations in the path of that fiscal policy journey also. So these are all the limitations we have seen in fiscal policy. There is one last concept which must be considered. Many of the economists assume that the crowding out effect is the most limiting factor or most dangerous factor of any fiscal policy. What is this? It means the possibility that the private sector may go out of the market due to some steps taken by government. When government interference starts, then there is a risk that the private sector may go out of the market. Maybe they are demotivated, which is called as crowding out. Let's see how. For example, a government, let's say a state government or even a central government, declared that it will give free PCs or laptops to students. What will be the impact? It's a good decision, of course. Let's see how it goes. Free PCs to student by government, no demand for PC by students in future. If you are a student, you must be very happy because you are getting a laptop or a tab or a PC free of cost. It's a gift given by government. But if you are a manufacturer of computer, you will not be happy because you found that there will be no demand for PC by students in future. Government needs loan from it. Obviously, when government is manufacturing the product, like Akash was the laptop introduced by government. For manufacturing, government needs the loan. Then the interest rate of loan will increase because again there will be a competition of government and private sector for taking the loans. So interest rates will increase. Private sector will be demotivated to manufacture PCs and it will totally run out of the market of PCs, which is called as crowding out. So the economist gives this opinion that even though government steps are highly required, you should make sure that it is not affecting the private sector because ultimately any economy runs on the basis of government as well as private sector steps taken. So in this way, we are coming to the end of this chapter. The name of chapter fiscal policy, that is the steps taken specifically by government, planned by government and implemented by government for the public benefit, called as fiscal policy. So the chapter, of course, is an interesting and important for our examinations. Good luck, revise it properly.